What's going on, growers? It's James Prigioni coming to you live from Jersey. I'm hanging out in the 7-year-old fruit forest. A lot of you have asked through the years, James, what do you plan on doing when those trees get big and they start to shade out the food forest? Well, like I said, we're 7 years later and that started to happen. So let me show you what I did and whether or not you can actually produce food and fruit in a shaded location. Let's go! Taking a peek into the food forest from the front corner. About a month ago I said, soon you won't be able to see through here. And as you can see, I wasn't joking. One thing that's got me more excited than anything else though is this persimmon here. This is the Nikita's gift and it is just loaded with persimmons. So I'm hoping for a lot of late presents from this one. This is our latest fruiting tree. And these things will be ripe about October time because they have to get nice and soft before you eat them, but they're so sweet and so good when they're ready. As you can see though, the growth, like I said, it's taken to the next level. Let me take you into the food forest though, and we can kind of see what it's like to be surrounded by growth. I'm in the food forest now, on the other side of the fence. We've got a pear tree doing excellent right there. The California poppy have started to show their faces. They're looking beautiful, bringing in the pollinators, as well as the echinacea here, one of my favorite flowers. And on the ground we have cosmos coming up, tomatoes from seed, all self-seeded. But I have a lot of flowers in this front corner and that's all by design. The reason I do that is because I want all the different colors and the smells of those flowers to draw in different pollinators to this front corner. And say you're a bee or you're a pollinator, once you come to this front corner and you put your face up or whatever it is, you look up and you see that beautiful forest in there. If I'm a pollinator, I'm hanging out in here. I'm going deeper into the forest. Once I got you in the center of the forest, I don't think you're going to want to leave. A forest is a beautiful home for basically any living thing, but it's actually also a great home for pests as well. Well, things that are pests to our trees. So you can see this tree is loaded with fruit, as are most of my peaches and apples and everything. The amount of fruit we have is incredible, but as I talked about in a previous video, we're getting hit pretty hard this year from the plum curculio, which attacks some of our fruit trees. Well, not just the trees, but the actual fruit. And I don't think it has anything to do with the health of the trees, as I talked about previous, but it stinks that we're not gonna get great fruit harvest from some of our trees, but that's not the end of it when you have a diversity. When you plant a diverse number of plants and fruiting things, then you've got stability in your harvest. So what might be I guess a bad spring or bad scenario this year for some of our fruit trees, looks like it's an excellent scenario for all of our berries. So the strawberries, the gooseberries, the blueberries, this year it looks like they're absolutely loaded. Let me take you into some of these strawberries and just show you the absolute abundance and take notice where they're growing. We've got in the center of the food forest, underneath multiple trees, we've got all these strawberries here. And are they producing fruit? Absolutely. A lot of fruit. And strawberries ideally grow best in full sun, I know that, but think about it. Most people would never think to plant any kind of fruit underneath your fruit trees, so anything you get is better than nothing. But we're getting these beautiful bonus yields, bonus harvests of incredible, beyond organic, natural food that we just get to come out and eat while we're producing even more of it underneath our fruiting vines and trees, learning from the forest. You may be thinking, learn from a forest. But in my opinion, a natural forest is one of the greatest teachers. When you look out at it, no one's taking care of it. It's self-sustaining, it's self-replicating, it's fertile, it's abundant, and if I want to start a garden and I want to produce food, then that's kind of the system I want to do. So what I did is I looked at a natural forest and we created a food forest, which was taking those elements and replacing them with food and fruiting species, things that we want to eat. Can you start a food forest where you live? Well, one question to ask is there a natural forest growing locally to you? If there is that no one's really taking care of, then you should be able to basically do the same thing. That's what I'm doing here. I haven't really watered these trees since I put them in, and I'm just here as a steward. I'm not constantly slaving over these things. I'm guiding them to help take care of them. So when we're looking out at a natural forest, we want to learn from it, see what it does, and pattern our plantings and stuff after that. When we look at a forest, like I can see one locally to me, I noticed that there's plenty of big trees, oak trees, maple trees, pine trees, But as understory, there's fruiting things also. There's blueberries, there's huckleberries, which lets us know there are certain plants and certain fruiting things that will grow well in shade, that are good as understory plants. Those are things we can put in our food forest, like these strawberries here. Like I mentioned, grow best in full shade, but they will do well as an understory. And getting some fruit is better than none. Over here you can see monster peach tree. This would be one of our canopy trees. This thing is just loaded with peaches. Hoping to get a good harvest, and that the bugs really weren't too hard on that one, the curculio. The big cherries, looking like the queen that she is. Got some cherries on that one, waiting for it to ripen. We may have to actually bird net that one because there's not as many cherries as I was hoping, and we want to make sure we get some of them. We're also growing raspberries underneath our trees too as an understory. So even though the trees have really filled out in here, and we're probably going to have to prune even some back in the future because some sections are getting even denser than we were hoping. But that was the idea. We would overplant, and if we have to cut things down in the future, that's fine. But at least we're not wasting time by planting one tree and then having to cut it out, 4 years later. We'd rather plant 5 trees, and if we have to cut 2 of them out, that's fine. But at least we didn't waste the time. We've also got some mint and stuff growing under the trees. Some of you have mentioned in the comments how to deal with a pest, that we should bring in some different kinds of herbs and stuff. That's an excellent idea. We're gonna be doing that. I have a good amount of herbs in here already, but could always use more. So when you write things in the comments, we do read them. I take them to heart, and I take those ideas and try to utilize them. Throughout the food forest, if there's places that get a lot of light, like where I'm standing right here, I come out, mark that location, and make sure that I come and put a transplant in. So I've got some peppers at my feet here already, put some tomatoes in too, some basil and all that stuff, eggplant. I like to just pack it as much as I can into the food forest and utilize as much of the space as I possibly can. Try to be faithful with it, and sometimes I think I might even overpack it. Like I've got the section behind me, I've got the grapes and the raspberries growing together, they're kind of fighting for one another. But that just gives me the option of which one I want to choose. I kind of have, I don't know, maybe a small addiction, like some of you might, to buying more plants and just to grow, not to buying, but growing more things and adding more diversity. It's a lot of fun, and I don't know, it's like, I guess it is maybe an addiction. Maybe you share it with me, but let me know down in the comments what you're planning today, what you're doing to take your garden to the next level. And if you don't have a garden yet, what book are you reading? Because if you're not gardening, you could be learning and reading and developing the skills and knowledge in order to be ready once you have the opportunity to garden. As you can see, this peach tree is just loaded here. She's one of our queens of the garden, next to the Bing. She's one of the first ones we planted. So there's a lot of history with that, and always reminds me of good times. Over here we've got some currants and stuff. And currants will grow well in the shade also, so that's a great understory plant. Honeyberries are too. I just did a video on those if you've never seen honeyberries. Hasscaps, they're delicious. They'll grow in partial shade. Here we've got some lingonberries too. A very small plant, but something that'll be fun to show you guys in the future. Potatoes back here. Like I said, trying to utilize as much space as possible. This pear tree is doing the best it ever has. This is one we healed through the years, cut off a lot of the dead growth, opened up light to it. It's got some suckers we're gonna have to take out. Over here you can see super, super dense on this south-facing fence. So much fun though. So much fun. Yesterday I just planted some beans right here. We'll be waiting for those to come up. Here's where I planted some spinach from seed, if you guys remember that. You can see it didn't do great. I knew it wasn't gonna do great. I planted it so late into the season, but we've still eaten a good amount of spinach from it. So I just like cooking up the spinach and eating it with my eggs, with the eggs that chickens give me in the morning. So that's one of my favorite things. I'll be growing more of that later in the season, come fall. And a lot of the trees over here are doing well, the apple trees. The growth is incredible on them. It's just, it's got some cuts into it, as you know from our infamous curculio. And the blackberries looking epic. The amount of fruit and the amount of new shoots too. It's funny, everything over here is just, it's like Paul Gauci talks about. The problem is slowing things down now. We've got so much stuff growing. And you guys can probably see those monster blackberry shoots right there, right? And you probably see the grapes back there too, right? It's like, geez. But what you probably don't see is the asparagus back there. And some of the asparagus back here was getting so little light. I ate one the other day. It was almost albino. It was so light green. And I put that asparagus back there. I'm definitely not advising to do that. I did that when I first started gardening before I knew how to plant asparagus. And the chocolate mint at the floor is just taking over. Let me just lay down in it real quick. Because if you've never had chocolate mint, the smell is ridiculous. When I walk by here, it's crazy. So just to lay in here, oh my gosh, the smells. But some of you have mentioned how to fight the curculio, maybe to put mint and some other kind of strong herbs under a trees. So this tree is, the base of it is loaded with mint, and it still got bit up pretty bad. So I think some of it was just, this year was super, super heavy, and just a good scenario for the curculio to be around basically. But I've got some preventative measures that I'm gonna take coming this fall, leading into spring next year, and just we're gonna do the best we can and produce as much fruit as we can. But I gotta show you some of the berries on the side and a few more of the other things, just to give you an idea that we're still gonna be getting great harvests in here. This is pretty cool here. We've got blackberries setting up, getting ready to ripen above strawberries that are already ripened. So double the berry, which is pretty funny. And peach trees coming up from seed. That won't be happening in the future because we'll be pulling out a lot of the fruit after it drops, because that's where actually a lot of the curculio like to harbor the next batch of them. Here's a section where we've got kind of a fight between the raspberries and the grapes. What I'll do is just cut back the raspberries along the fence line and just basically let the raspberries come this way instead of fighting the grapes. I don't want that. I still want the grapes on that fence line. And this thing is a beast, this gooseberry. Oh my gosh. The amount of fruit. Like I said, the berries are taking over this year. And from the top here, it doesn't look like that many, but it holds it all on these, like on the underside of them. So some of them are just loaded and some of them are getting big. I've never had this variety, so the first time you try a new variety, that's always fun. Let me know if you want me to bring you along as my first taste test of this gooseberry. Some branches have more than others. And let me show you some of the annuals in the food forest though, the ones we have in here. If you guys have been watching the channel for any period of time, then you know I'm the kind of person who's gonna try to grow stuff wherever they possibly can. I'll even try to grow stuff where you probably can't grow things. In this back corner section here, I planted lettuce and stuff in the past because it gets shaded by a mulberry. But last year I planted a couple tomatoes and they produced. So this year I put in a lot more. I've also got some brassicas and stuff. Some of the brassicas, they're doing all right. They're not doing as better as some of my other brassicas that are getting full sun. Let me show you what these ones look like here, then I'll show you the ones that are doing excellent. When you walk into the food forest on the left, this is what you see. At this period of the day, it gets a decent amount of sun. But like I mentioned, we're on the south side of a mulberry tree, and some of this is actually directly under the mulberry tree. So it doesn't get full sun. We get this partial filtered sunlight. Kale seems to be doing really well. That's a scarlet kale. Some of the tomatoes are doing well in that they're getting adjusted to their new homes. That one's doing all right. And this tomato seems to be taking off. You can see they're getting a little tall. Some of that has to do with searching for some light. But overall, it looks like we're gonna get a good fruit harvest from these. And again, I never would have got this harvest if I didn't plant, if I didn't take the chance. And you can see some of these brassicas, they're not doing great, they're doing all right. But let me take you into the new food forest and show you some of them in there. So over here is what brassicas should look like. I can't show you too much, I can only give you a peek because this is the new food forest. I gotta take you over now to the side garden and show you some of those berries. I promise you all berries though, so berries you will get. Look at that epic blueberry right there. Chandlers, those things are gonna be monster blueberries. Behind it, more black cap raspberries than you could imagine. Oh my gosh. This thing is setting up for a crazy harvest. And this also setting up for a lot of work in the future for me to clean this section out. I'm not thinking about that though, I'm thinking about eating all these and raspberry jam, and this is why I don't allow my fall bearing or ever bearing raspberries to produce in the spring, because I'm just overloaded with these kinds of berries. I'd rather produce and grow summer bearing raspberries and then have the ever-bearing ones just produce in the fall, that one big fall harvest, which is always better quality, bigger and more delicious. And as this blueberry right here too is fruiting, look at the growth on it this year. Amazing. So you can see it's just been a great year for blueberries and berries in general. That's what I mentioned it before, then great things about having a diversity. And here's some new tomatoes I put in just this year. They're doing well, they're adjusting nicely to the new home. And don't forget about this variety of blueberry over here. I actually don't even know what one it is. One I got a couple of years ago and the tag wasn't on it. I got it for real cheap, actually at one of the local big box stores. So you can get some good deals there. I'm just telling you to be careful for the fruit trees though. A lot of times they'll be root bound. More strawberries over here. These are ever-bearing strawberries, so these will produce multiple crops. They'll produce another crop this season. And these ones actually have a better flavor than the ones in the garden. I love these ones over here. And more blueberries, doing excellent. I've mentioned it before, but this is our side garden, which is in the food forest design, but it's just specializes in berry production. As you can see, and look at these blueberries. So like I said, not the greatest fruit tree harvest this year probably, but man, the berry harvest, look at that. One bush. And can't forget about the service berries. So the Saskatoon, more of a rare berry, one you probably haven't heard of, but you know we like to have different things and keep the unusual fruits, keep you guys on your toes, and also to just make growing a lot more fun. That's today's video, growers. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed it, hit the like button, subscribe, and don't forget to ring that notification bell. More importantly than all that though is leave some stuff down in the comment section. Let me know what you're thinking. Let me know what you want to see. Whenever I make a video like this and I'm doing the outro like right now, I'm always like, oh, I wish I showed that. I wish I showed this. So if there is something specific you want to see, you want to know about, just let me know. I read the comments. I'll try to incorporate it in the next video. We'll talk about it. And that's really what I want to do. Become more of a community. Because me just blabbering my mouth on here, that's not really what I want to do. I want to be able to connect with you, to have a more engagement, and like I said, have this channel become more of a community where we're all learning together. If you did enjoy it, hit the subscribe button and check us out on Steam It too. James Prigioni is out.